Are you still trying to figure out how to pay that little bit of a balance left over for your student's college bill? If so, are you considering Parent Plus loans to cover that gap? If you are, then you do not want to miss this video because I'm going to cover everything that you and your student need to understand about Parent Plus loans and why you should proceed with caution. So we're going to make sure you know everything about it before you sign that dotted line. Now, before we begin, make sure you click the subscribe button because every single week we are going to release new strategies on how to eliminate these loans with debt-free money and other ideas. So make sure you click that subscribe button. Now, my name is Jocelyn Pearson. I'm founder of the scholarship system where we redefine paying for college so that families can build strong financial futures. Now, of course, if you are looking at student loans, that means that our job is to make sure that you know what you're signing up for. So that is what I'm going to cover in this entire video. So let's begin with just a very quick list of what type of loans are out there. The primary categories are first Stafford loans, which are federal government loans, and they are typically split between unsubsidized and subsidized loans. The next type is Parent Plus loans, which are also federal loans, but as you'll see, they are very different. And then lastly, there are private loans. So I'm going to include some links below, including a link to a video on subsidized and unsubsidized, as well as a blog post about private loans in case you need to look into those. So what is the difference between these types of federal loans, subsidized and unsubsidized versus Parent Plus loans? Well, honestly, it'd be faster just to say the similarities. Basically, the similarities is that they're all from the Department of Education, and the way the money is given to your student is the federal government gives it to the university, and then the university disperses it accordingly through your student's account, which I'll explain more in just a little bit. Other than that, the way a lot of the aspects of this loan works, approval, payback periods, interest rates, they all differ. So I want to go through those one by one to make sure that you know all the details. So one of the first things I have to stress with you is if you're considering signing for a Parent Plus loan for your student, you need to know that the responsibility of this cannot be transferred to your child. So this is not something that you can co-sign for or sign for now and then just transfer it to your student and it's their problem. That is not the case. You are taking this. And also, I want you to know that it is pretty much impossible to claim bankruptcy on student loan debt. So if you sign up for these, you cannot just claim bankruptcy on them. You're going to be responsible for these as long as the payback period takes. Now, just one quick cautionary story. I know that Parent Plus loans are helpful in many situations, but this one mother specifically signed for her daughter and in the end had nearly 6 figures in student debt that she signed for. And after graduation, her daughter actually could not get a job. And so the daughter just didn't make any of the payments. And next thing she knew, the mother had to go ahead and make these payments because otherwise her credit would have been completely destroyed. Now, I would love to say that no students would ever do that to their parents. Every student's going to get a job and they're going to pay the payments and you don't have to worry about it. But reality is that some parents do get stuck with the bill. So please keep that in mind if you are considering signing up for this, okay? Just one quick cautionary tale with that. So the rest of this video is going to be all about what they are and how to make sure that you get the best terms. But for now, I just did want to give you that little warning. Now, another aspect of Parent Plus loans versus the other Stafford loans that are federal is that, of course, a parent has to be the one signing for that. Also, it is based on credit. While it's not necessarily based on a specific credit score number, if you have negative credit aspects such as defaulting or anything like that, then that can cause you to not be approved for Parent Plus loans. The other federal loans that are specific to your student, that's subsidized and unsubsidized, those are not based on you as a parent. You don't have to co-sign for them, and credit is not necessarily a factor. But with Parent Plus loans, it is. So let's get into that a little bit more. How is a parent and a student eligible to receive Parent Plus loans? Well, first and foremost, you want to make sure that your student submits FAFSA. So that way the university has your financial situation. And also you want to make sure that you do that first anyway, before you're borrowing any kind of Parent Plus loans. Make sure that you're maximizing those unsubsidized and subsidized loans first. Now, the next thing is that each school might have their own complementary application process, but there is a main one on the government website. I'm going to include the link to that in the description if you need to apply for the Parent Plus loans. Now, like I mentioned, credit is an aspect of this. So a credit score report will be pulled. And if you have adverse credit history, then you may need a cosigner for this loan. So it wouldn't be your student as a cosigner, but you could possibly get someone else without any adverse impacts on their credit score to cosign for these loans. Now, again, of course, you want to remember that then they are on the hook. So that would mean that you are pulling someone else into the responsibility for these student loans. Now, technically, anything through FAFSA is need-based, but families that even make six figures can be eligible for this. So don't just assume that you make too much to be eligible for this. In fact, while the terms are not as good as subsidized and unsubsidized, they are often better than private student loans, or they're easier to get that versus private student loans. I'm going to talk about the different terms in just a moment. Now, just a few last criteria is that the student that these are being borrowed for has to be undergraduate. They also have to be your student. So a grandparent cannot sign for these, neither a legal guardian. They have to be the actual parent or have to be officially adopted by the grandparent or legal guardian in order to be able to get these Parent Plus loans for that student. Now, the last piece of criteria is just that the student has to be a student for at least part-time, half-time. If they are anything less than that, say taking only 1 or 2 classes, then that they will not be eligible to receive this kind of loan, federal loan money. In fact, actually, none of the federal loans would be eligible for someone that's going less than half-time. Now, let's get into interest rates. So at the time of recording this, the current interest rates are over 6%, which is quite a bit higher than the other federal loans, which are just under 4%. On top of that, there is a loan fee. So the current loan fee for subsidized and unsubsidized is only 1%, but the loan fee for these is over 4%. So not only are you paying more in interest, but you also pay more in the origination fee for the loan itself. Now, interest does begin to accrue the moment this money is dispersed. So there is no leeway as far as when the interest starts building up on Parent Plus loans. It begins right away. Now, I'm going to link to a separate video where I cover a lot more in detail about unsubsidized and subsidized loans, so you can find that in the description. But comment below, would you like a video that specifically talks about how interest is calculated? If you want, I can walk you through that to show if a student borrows a certain amount, what that payment would look like. Go ahead and comment below. You can write interest video, please, and I'll make that if a lot of you are looking for that information. So how does your student get the money if this is a path that you take? So like I mentioned earlier, it is dispersed by the school. Basically, they will credit it to your student's account. Now, if they borrow more than what the bill is, then they would receive a check for the overage or maybe a direct deposit for that amount that's beyond the bill. Now, do you have to borrow everything that you are approved for? Absolutely not. Okay. The thing with Parent Plus loans is there's virtually no limit when it comes to borrowing, which can make this especially dangerous. But you can basically borrow up to the cost of attendance minus any other financial aid received. So say, for example, your student's cost of attendance for the year is $30,000 and they received $20,000 in financial aid package offerings from other sources. So then the gap would be $10,000, and that is the amount that you'd be limited at for applying for Parent Plus loans. Now, again, I want to stress that you do not have to borrow all of that money. If you're approved for the total amount, but you think that you can maybe cash flow a little bit of the meal plan, or maybe your student could get a part-time job and cover their rent, then please, if you can do anything to reduce the amount that you have to borrow, please do. And again, we're going to be releasing a strategy every single week to close that gap. So if you click subscribe, you'll make sure that you don't miss out any of those free trainings. But also below, I'm going to link to a free scholarship training where your student can apply for outside scholarships every single year while they're in college that can help pay for college without student debt. So I really recommend looking into that, especially if you're at the point where your student is requiring you to sign for Parent Plus loans. Now let's talk about when does this have to be paid back. So when it comes to Parent Plus loans, they have to be paid back technically immediately unless you request a deferment. So if you get approved for a deferment, then it would be pushed back to 6 months after your student graduates or stops meeting that half-time requirement for attending school. So if they take a year off, for example, that would trigger those payments even if you requested a deferment. Now, the payback period is typically 10 years unless you've borrowed over $30,000, in which you can request a longer and extended period up to 25 years. But typically the payback period is 10 years for these. Now, in reality, it takes students on average 21 years to pay back student loans. So that is also something to keep in mind. Very few students truly end up paying back their loans within that 10-year period. Now, the good news is, say something happens. Maybe they apply for outside scholarships and they get to an overage check, and we can put that towards these student loans. Or maybe they make some decisions and they don't have to borrow anything else, and you're able to instead put money towards paying this off early. The good news is that there are no fees for early repayment or even for prepayments. So if you want to make monthly payments towards this throughout college, if you want to pay off the balance, maybe you get a windfall of cash, that is completely fine. There are no penalties for doing that. Now, again, as many of you know, I'm always about reducing the amount that your family even has to borrow. So again, I used outside scholarships as my primary source to pay for my college degree. So down in the description, you will find a link to a free scholarship training where I cover my 6 steps to securing scholarships for college. Take advantage of that. Work with your student on getting these scholarships so that you can avoid having to take out a ton of Parent Plus loans, because again, they can be a slippery slope, they can be dangerous, but at the same time, they can be useful, of course, when they are needed. But if there's anything we can do to minimize how much we need, scholarships is that path. So again, check out that free training down in the description. And then don't forget to hit subscribe, because every single week you're going to get a free strategy that can help you reduce how much your student has to borrow beyond scholarships. I will see you in the next video.